So 2 weeks ago, I made a video discussing why I would be voting for President Trump. But now I want to discuss why no one should vote for Joe Biden. Come on, man. Before we begin, I just need to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Raycon who sponsored this video. Stick around for a special offer from our friends at Raycon. There are essentially 4 reasons why you should not vote for Joe Biden. First, he is a typical Washington, D.C. politician with all of the corruption that entails. Second, he has been wrong on every major foreign policy issue, like ever his entire life. Third, he has no bulwark of moderation. He has shifted left on every major policy issue on which he has ever spoken. And finally, his actual agenda, the one he has stated, is wildly and radically to the left. Okay, so let's start with who is Joe Biden. Biden was born in 1942, a long time ago, in Scranton, Pennsylvania. His family moved to Delaware when he was 9. He was a self-described poor student in high school. He was popular. He was elected student class president, I believe, when he was in high school. He went to University of Delaware. He was ranked 506th in a class of 688. He went to Syracuse College of Law. He ranked 76th out of a class of 85, which just shows you that our political class, they're not always bringing the intellectual best. He received draft deferments for Vietnam while he was in school. He won his first Senate race in 1972 when he was 29 years old. That was the same year that his wife and daughter Naomi were killed in an automobile accident, which of course is a massive tragedy. His sons were in the car and they were injured as well. Biden subsequently married Jill in 1977. He became ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee in 1981 and ran for president in 1987. But he flamed out amidst accusations of exaggeration and plagiarism. So what was Joe Biden like when he was in Congress? Well, he was ambitious, right? He was the father of so-called borking. He was the guy in charge of the Senate Judiciary Committee when they decided to basically make it impossible for anybody to openly state that they were in favor of the Constitution as written and interpreting it as written as a judge. Joe Biden brags about that now. He says he was happy that he kept Robert Bork off the court. If you like all of the insanity surrounding our judicial nominations, you can blame Joe Biden. He started it.
I was part of the reason why Elena Kagan, who worked for me, got on the Supreme Court. I was part of the reason why Ruth Bader Ginsburg is on the court. I was part of the reason why Sotomayor is on the court, and she swore me in. I presided, and I'm the reason why this right wasn't taken away a long time ago, because I almost single-handedly made sure that Robert Bork did not get on the court because he did not think there should be enumerated rights.
Okay, that was one of the most egregious acts in the history of judicial nominations, and Biden brags about it. He tried the same thing against Clarence Thomas. He tried to railroad Thomas on Anita Hill's unsupported charges of sexual harassment. Thomas suggested that essentially Biden was throwing beanballs at him, that Biden was being unfair to him, which of course was true. Later, Biden would apologize to Anita Hill for not being harsher on Clarence Thomas. And of course, Joe Biden has a very long habit of putting his foot in his mouth. I know that now we are all supposed to believe he's a golden-tongued orator, but until 5 minutes ago, everybody understood that Joe Biden was a walking joke. Here is just a few of Joe Biden's favorite gaffes.
You got the first sort of mainstream African American who was articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent.
As far as the idea that Joe Biden is just a nice guy, aside from borking Bork and going after Clarence Thomas, you'll remember that Joe Biden also said that Mitt Romney was going to re-enslave black people, so that was exciting stuff.
He's going to let the big banks once again write their own rules. Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
Okay, so that kind of sums up his political career up till this point in terms of what he had done. Right, he was a senator for a really long time. Then he was Barack Obama's vice president. He ran for president, as I say, in 1987, 1988. He was basically thrown out of the campaign when it was discovered that he was a plagiarist. He was a serial plagiarist, actually. He plagiarized not just from Neil Kinnock, who's a British politician, about his personal life story. He also plagiarized from RFK, and that brought up other plagiarism issues and exaggeration issues. He suggested he'd been a civil rights marcher. None of that was true. All of that is kind of usual politics. And then you get to Joe Biden's corruption. So when we talk about usual politics of corruption, Joe Biden's there, right? He is a Washington, D.C. swamp creature. And this has been known for a long time. There's nothing new here. Okay, Joe Biden, I know now everybody is talking about Joe Biden and Hunter. This has been a kind of skeleton in Joe Biden's closet nearly his entire political career, members of his family using his name in order to make bank. So going back to 2008, mainstream media outlets were reporting on Joe Biden's family corruption. CBS News reported, quote, a son of Democratic vice presidential candidate Joe Biden was paid an undisclosed amount of money as a consultant by MBNA, the largest employer in Delaware. During the years, the senator supported legislation that was promoted by the credit card industry and opposed by consumer groups. Consumer and civil rights groups and unions, as well as Democratic opponents, had argued that the bankruptcy legislation was unfair to low-income working people, single moms, minorities, and the elderly, and would remove a safety net for those who have lost their jobs or face mounting medical bills. MBNA employees poured more than $200,000 into Biden's Senate campaigns over the past 2 decades. making donors working for the credit card company the senator's largest source of campaign money. And of course, Biden was receiving sweetheart real estate deals from MBNA himself. Michelle Malkin, reporting for National Review in 2010, wrote, former senior senator from Delaware and current Vice President Joe Biden has a custom-built house in Delaware's ritziest Chateau Country neighborhood. It is now worth at least $2.5 million. It is the Biden's most valuable asset. Biden tapped campaign funds to pay for his compound's lawn needs. He secured the new estate with the help of a corporate executive who worked for Biden's top campaign donor, credit card giant MBNA. In 1996, Biden sold his previous mansion to MBNA Vice Chairman John Cochran. The asking price was $1.2 million. Cochran forked over the full sum. Biden then paid $350,000 in cash to real estate developer Keith Stoltz for a 4.2-acre lakefront lot. Stoltz had paid that same amount 5 years earlier for the undeveloped property. Joe Biden's family spent decades cashing in on his name. According to the left-wing site The Intercept, in 2006, Beau Biden, who died of cancer in 2015, was roped into an investment meeting led by James and Hunter Biden at the firm Paradigm Global Advisors. The family was considering acquiring the firm. James Biden told executives he'd have no problem bringing in people looking for an in with Joe Biden, who was a U.S. senator at the time. James Biden told officials, according to a Politico magazine investigation, quote, we've got people all over the world who want to invest in Joe Biden. James, also in the 90s, founded a group called Lion Hall, which lobbied for Mississippi trial lawyers involved in tobacco litigation. According to Curtis Wilkie's book, The Fall of the House of Zeus, the trial lawyers wanted James Biden's help pushing Joe Biden on tobacco legislation. And of course, then there's Hunter, who's run around picking up bags of cash from everybody from MBNA to Burisma. In fact, here's Hunter Biden admitting the only reason he was even on the Burisma board is because his last name is Biden.
If your last name wasn't Biden, do you think you would have been asked to be on the board of Burisma?
I don't know. Probably not. I don't think that there's a lot of things that would have happened in my life that if my last name wasn't Biden.
So supposedly, Joe Biden knew nothing about any of this, right? Hunter was just picking up rides on Air Force Two to China and then picking up $1 million deals over there. And Hunter Biden was traveling over to Kazakhstan and to Ukraine and just picking up these bags of cash everywhere. But Joe Biden knew nothing about any of these deals. Well, now Tony Bobulinski, who was Hunter Biden's business partner in a failed Chinese venture, he says, no, Joe is pretty well aware of this stuff.
That's a blatant lie. When he states that is a blatant lie. Obviously, the world's aware that I attended the debate last Thursday. And in that debate, he made a specific statement around questions around this from the president. And I'll be honest with you, I almost stood up and screamed liar and walked out because I was shocked.
So bottom line here is that Joe Biden's a swamp creature, right? He is a typical Washington, D.C. swamp creature. He is embedded in low-level to high-level corruption. He's been willing to greenlight his family's corruption for a long time. Then we get to Joe Biden on policy. So, a few things to know about Joe Biden on policy. Okay, first reason not to vote for Biden, typical D.C. politician, swamp creature. Reason number two not to vote for Joe Biden. He's been wrong on every foreign policy issue of his entire lifetime. I'm not the one saying that. Obama Defense Secretary Robert Gates said that just a few years back. Again, that was Obama's defense secretary who served with Joe Biden saying that.
You said in your memoir, Joe Biden is impossible not to like. Quote, he's a man of integrity, incapable of hiding what he really thinks, and one of those rare people you know you could turn to for help in a personal crisis. Still, I think he's been wrong on nearly every major foreign policy and national security issue over the past 4 decades. Would he be an effective commander-in-chief?
I don't know. I think I stand by that statement.
So let's go through this. Okay, so on Iraq, Joe Biden supported the war in Iraq, right? He did. He spoke out favorably for it. He said it was really, really important. He talked about supporting President Bush. Then he says that Colin Powell made a compelling case for the war in Iraq. That was in 2003. By 2005, Biden was saying the Iraq war was a mistake, right? It was a big mistake by 2005 because, of course, Joe Biden shifts with the wind. By 2019, Biden was openly lying about this stuff, saying that he started opposing the war the moment shock and awe started, which, of course, is not true. He continued to support the war after that. And here's Joe Biden in 2019 just lying about his opposition to the Iraq war.
I did make a bad judgment trusting the president saying he was only doing this to get inspectors in and get the UN to agree to put inspectors in. From the moment shock and awe started, from that moment, I was opposed to the effort and I was outspoken as much as anyone at all in the Congress and administration.
Overt lie, not true. Okay, then by 2006, Biden opposed the Iraq surge. Right, so the Iraq surge was a really, really bad idea. By the way, that's the only thing that made Iraq anything close to a success. Then by 2010, Biden was in favor of precipitously pulling troops out of Iraq. He said it would be a great Obama achievement. Of course, we all remember, if we have memories long enough, that the pullout from Iraq ended with the rise of ISIS. So it's actually one of the worst things the Obama administration did. Here was Joe Biden in 2010 praising it.
I am very optimistic about Iraq. I think it's going to be one of the great achievements of this administration. You're going to see 90,000 American troops come marching home by the end of the summer. You're going to see a stable government in Iraq that is actually moving toward a representative government.
Okay, all of that is just him being wrong from every conceivable angle on Iraq, like every angle. Then there's Afghanistan. So in 2009, Biden opposed Obama's Afghanistan surge. He was the only person in the cabinet to do so, apparently. Then in 2011, Biden acknowledged that he had opposed the raid that ended with the killing of Osama bin Laden, which is nearly impossible to do. Like, that's the easiest call in the history of foreign policy, and Biden blew that one. Here's Biden admitting he blew it.
I said, we owe the man a direct answer. Mr. President, my suggestion is don't go. We have to do 2 more things to see if he's there.
Okay, let's move to Libya. So Biden in 2011 said that NATO got it right in Libya. In fact, Libya was a great success story as opposed to George W. Bush in Iraq. Forget about the fact that Libya immediately collapsed into utter chaos, ending with the burning of the U.S. Embassy in Benghazi and the murder of 4 Americans, including Ambassador Chris Stevens. Also, wrong on Russia. In 2012, Biden openly mocked the idea of Russia as an adversary because Mitt Romney had said that Russia was a geopolitical threat to the United States. Biden said, no, none of that. They're our friends, guys. They are our friends. Now, of course, Russia is the big bad bogeyman in the closet. But at the time, Biden was handing over control of Syria to Russia. He was handing over control of Crimea to Russia. He and Obama were pledging flexibility to Russia. So he's been wrong on that. He was wrong on Iran. In 2015, Joe Biden praised the Iran deal, said the Iran deal was a godsend. It was going to create peace in the Middle East.
I have come to the conclusion that in the context I've just cited, that this is a good deal. This is a good deal for first and foremost for the United States. It's a good deal for the world, the region, and it's a good deal for Israel and the Gulf cooperation states. It's a good deal.
Turns out the Iran deal was a giant mess. All it did was fund a terrorist regime that was using that money in order to kill American soldiers abroad and foster its terrorism all over the Middle East. By the way, the fostering of that terrorism ended, ironically, with Middle East peace between many Arab countries and Israel who had to oppose Iran. Then in 2020, Biden came out and ripped Donald Trump for killing Qasem Soleimani, who's the head of the terror network in Iran. He said, yeah, Soleimani was a bad guy, but this is for sure going to create retaliation. It brings us closer to the brink of war. None of that was true, right? He literally said that this will have the opposite effect of deterring future attacks from Iran. He said he tossed a stick of dynamite into a tinderbox. That was Biden's phraseology. Dead wrong on that. Okay, on China. Biden said in 2019 that China is not competition for the United States, which is weird because they are.
China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man. They can't even figure out how to deal with the fact that they have this great division between the China Sea and the mountains in the West. They can't figure out how they're going to deal with the corruption that exists within the system. I mean, they're not bad folks, but guess what? They're not competition for us.
Hey, on Israel, Biden has always taken the view that being harsh with Israel in its negotiations with Palestinian terror groups is a good idea. And now, in 2020, after it is perfectly obvious and clear that the move of the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem was a good move and had no downsides, Joe Biden still says he wouldn't have moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem.
This is an administration that, as you know, advocated moving the capital of Israel to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv. If you are elected president, would you reverse that?
Not now. I wouldn't reverse it. I wouldn't have done it in the first place.
So bottom line is this. Robert Gates is right. Biden's been wrong on every major foreign policy issue of his entire lifetime. All right, more on the reasons why you should not vote for Joe Biden in just a second. But first, I have to tell you about something fabulous, something incredible, something. These right here. You see these? In my hand, these are Raycons. And these are going to be your favorite wireless earbuds, just as they are my favorite wireless earbuds. So many celebrities love these wireless earbuds, these Raycons. In fact, the only thing that platinum award-winning rappers like me and Cardi B have in common is our love for Raycon. Raycon, the everyday E25 earbuds. These are the best earbuds on the market. 6 hours of playtime, Bluetooth. They're wireless earbuds. They come in a range of fun colors and patterns. They're super comfortable. They come with a variety of fit options. The compact carrying case, it can charge earbuds 4 times on a single charge. Unlike some of those other wireless options, Raycon earbuds are stylish and discreet. No dangling wires, no stems. They are great for video chats. One of the things I love is they're going to fit your ear perfectly because they have a variety of fits, so you can really customize them so they fit properly. And Raycon earbuds start at about half the price of any other premium wireless earbuds on the market. They sound just as amazing as other top audio brands you know. Raycons are great for working from home, working out, listening to music and podcasts. Check out their everyday E25s, as I say. 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, more bass, more compact design that gives you that nice noise-isolating fit. It also comes in new fun colors. Click the link in the description below. Get 15% off your order. Again, click that link down below. Get 15% off your order. Okay, then we get to his domestic policy. So there's one constant theme to Joe Biden's domestic policy. He's constantly evolving, which is to say he abandons every position as soon as it becomes politically unpalatable. So look at his history on crime and drugs. In 1982, Biden explicitly told Ronald Reagan to ramp up drug enforcement. In fact, he said Ronald Reagan wasn't doing enough on drug enforcement. Then in 1989, he suggested we needed more drug enforcement. We needed longer sentences for criminals. We needed to lock up drug dealers. Here's Joe Biden saying that.
I think the president has to join us in making a significantly greater commitment to these 6 areas to stem the rising tide of violence in America. And that's what it is, violence. First, we have to join together to ensure that drug dealers are punished swiftly, surely, and severely. And in line with what the president is calling for, we have to hold every drug user accountable. Because if there were no drug users, there would be no appetite for drugs and there'd be no market for them.
In 1993, Joe Biden became one of the chief sponsors of the 1994 Congressional Crime Bill, which lengthened sentences, created mandatory minimums, and all that. It was actually a good bill. But don't worry, you'll see. As times shift, so does Joe Biden. In 2010, Biden stood with the criminalization of marijuana. In 2016, Biden was still defending the 1994 crime bill. But by 2019-2020, things had changed, right? The nature of the Democratic Party had changed. And now Joe Biden was apologizing for the crime bill. In 2019, he said, I'm sorry about that. It was just a big mistake, said Joe Biden. He said, I haven't always been right. I know we haven't always gotten things right, but I've always tried. It was a big mistake when it was made. Oh, weird, because that was the signal achievement of your congressional career. He also flipped on marijuana. He had said that marijuana was bad. Now marijuana ought to be decriminalized. And he flipped on the death penalty as well. So virtually every criminal justice stand he's ever held, he has flipped on. The same thing is true on abortion. In 1973-74, Biden supported getting rid of Roe versus Wade. He said that the decision went too far. He said in 1974, quote, he didn't think a woman has the sole right to say what should happen to her body. Okay, as late as 2019, Biden was still defending the Hyde Amendment. Right? He was saying that abortion should not be federally funded in the United States. Then it became politically unpalatable to say that, and so he flipped and denounced the Hyde Amendment.
I can't justify leaving millions of women without access to the care they need and the ability to exercise their constitutionally protected right. If I believe health care is a right, as I do, I can no longer support an amendment that makes that right dependent on someone's zip code.
By 2020, he'd moved all the way from Roe versus Wade is a bad decision to we need to codify Roe in federal law because his party is now the party of unrestricted abortion on every level.
Considering the new Supreme Court nomination of Amy Coney Barrett, what are your particular plans to protect women's reproductive rights in the U.S.?
Number one, we don't know exactly what she will do, although the expectation is that she may very well move to overrule Roe. But the only responsible response to that would be to pass legislation making Roe the law of the land. That's what I would do.
On immigration, Joe Biden has shifted. In 2006, Joe Biden suggested not only building 700 miles of fence, he also suggested that we ought to prosecute companies for hiring illegal immigrants.
I voted for a fence. I voted, unlike most Democrats, and some of you won't like it, I voted for 700-mile fence. But let me tell you, we can build a fence 40 stories high, unless it changes the dynamic in Mexico. And you will not like this, and punish American employers who knowingly violate the law when, in fact, they hire illegals.
Now, of course, Joe Biden says he will make DACA permanent on the very first day he is in office. Okay, on gay marriage, Joe Biden evolved. Okay, but he didn't really evolve. Okay, let's just be frank about this. Everything in Joe Biden's career is he follows the prevailing winds in his party, which makes a big difference because, remember, his pitch is that he is a bulwark against the radicals. No, he absolutely is not. On gay marriage, in 93, he voted for a bill deeming homosexuality incompatible with military service, the Don't Ask, Don't Tell bill. In 96, Biden voted for the Defense of Marriage Act, protecting traditional marriage. By 2012, he had shifted. Now he was pushing same-sex marriage as a trial balloon on behalf of the Obama administration.
You're comfortable with same-sex marriage now?
Look,
I am Vice President of the United States of America. The President sets the policy. I am absolutely comfortable with the fact that men marrying men, women marrying women, and heterosexual men and women marrying women are entitled to the same exact rights, all the civil rights, all the civil liberties. And quite frankly, I don't see much of a distinction beyond that.
That was not a matter of principle for Joe Biden. It was a matter of, as always, political expedience. On literally every topic, Joe Biden is willing to shift his stance. Every single one. In 96, he voted for welfare reform. By 2020, his campaign would not answer where he even was on welfare reform. Okay, so bottom line is this. If you're trusting Joe Biden to be a bulwark against the radical left, you're stupid. That is an idiotic idea. He is not a bulwark against the radical left. So, to recap, he's a typical Washington, D.C. corrupt insider. 2, he's been wrong on every foreign policy issue he has ever touched. 3, he has evolved on every position toward the radical left when the incentives were aligned. And finally, 4, Joe Biden's already making clear that the agenda is aligning on behalf of the radical left. Not only has he suggested that America is systemically racist, his actual plans are, as Bernie Sanders says, to the left of Franklin Roosevelt, of FDR, of LBJ. It is the most progressive platform in American history, according to Bernie Sanders. Biden's tax plan, according to the Tax Foundation's General Equilibrium Model, will reduce GDP by 1.62% over the long term. That Biden tax plan, by 2030, would lead to about 7.7% less after-tax income for the top 1% and about a 1.9% decline in after-tax income for all taxpayers on average. A Hoover Institute analysis says that tax plan is going to cost the median family about $6,500 by 2030. His spending is extraordinary. According to Henry Olsen, writing for the Washington Post, the Manhattan Institute's Brian Rydell, a former budget staffer, used third-party cost estimates of Biden's proposal to show they total more than $11 trillion over 10 years. $11 trillion. By the way, the optimistic assessment of how much money the government will take in addition to what they're currently taking in because of the tax increases, is just $3.3 trillion. So that is an overrun of $8 trillion. Biden is going to target your religious liberty. He is. His own website says, quote, religious freedom is a fundamental American value, but states have inappropriately used broad exemptions to allow businesses, medical providers, social service agencies, state and local government officials, and others to discriminate against LGBTQ people. So what you're going to get is your church being cracked down upon, your business being cracked down upon. Religious liberty is on the ballot. Biden's on the wrong side of it. On guns, Biden has actually been pretty consistently anti-gun, despite all of his talk about owning shotguns and then saying blatantly ridiculous things about guns, such as blow a shotgun blast through your door or fire a shotgun from your balcony, or cops should shoot to wound. Biden openly says he'll put Beto O'Rourke, like gun confiscation Beto O'Rourke, in charge of guns.
I want to make something clear. I'm going to guarantee you this is not the last year seeing of this guy. You're going to take care of the gun problem with me. You're going to be the one that leads this effort. I'm counting on you. I'm counting on you.
On labor, Biden intends on giving away the store to organized labor, particularly public sector unions. He opposes right-to-work legislation that allows you not to sign over union wages if you're not a member of a union in many states. He's in favor of card check, which allows union heads to bully you into voting in favor of a union. No blind balloting for unions. He wants to raise the minimum wage. He wants to make collective bargaining with public sector unions mandatory, so states don't get to decide whether to bargain with a public sector union. On schooling, Biden wants to hand billions and billions and billions of more dollars to teachers' unions. He opposes federal funding for charter schools. He opposes school vouchers. On immigration, Biden is now pushing hard for amnesty for 11 million illegal immigrants. He said this in the last debate.
I've made it very clear. Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people. And all of those so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship.
So there you are, the 4 reasons not to vote for Joe Biden. Typical politician, complete with all the corruption. 2, Joe Biden's been wrong on every single foreign policy issue of his entire life. 3, you cannot trust him to be a bulwark for moderation. He's not even a bulwark in defense of his own moderation from the past. He will immediately dump out of that if the political winds shift against him. And 4, his open agenda is incredibly radical. And you may not like President Trump. You may not want to vote for President Trump. You may not vote for President Trump. But please, think about whether or not you should vote for Joe Biden. Because a vote against President Trump and in favor of Joe Biden is still a vote in favor of Joe Biden. Well, thanks so much for watching. If you want to see more content like this, let us know down in the comments.